The salute that silenced my family. How military intelligence exposed my stepdad on my birthday. My name is Alex Carter, and for 8 years, I carried a silence that weighed more than any rucksack I'd ever humped across a desert. When I enlisted at 19, I was a sharp kid good with patterns and languages. That caught the right eye, and I was funneled not into the infantry, but into the shadowy world of military intelligence. For 8 years, my life was a classified document. My address was a P.O. box. My job title was Logistics Analyst. My reality was analyzing intercepted communications, tracking financial trails of hostile actors, and helping to build profiles of individuals who were a threat to national security. I was good at it. I was proud of it. And I could never, ever talk about it. Coming home was like stepping onto an alien planet. My friends had built careers, bought houses, and had stories from their offices I could actually understand. My stories were redacted before they even left my lips. The burden of that secrecy was a wall between me and everyone I loved, a wall they seemed determined to break down with mockery instead of patience. My stepdad, Gary, was the chief architect of my humiliation. He'd married my mom when I was 15, a loud, boisterous man who'd made his money in construction and believed truth was something you could hold in your hands. Like a hammer or a paycheck, Gary said, "A real man doesn't hide behind it's classified, Alex. A real man has stories." "What did you really do? Push paper in a basement?" "You can tell us. We're family." My younger brother, Mark, who adored Gary, was his eager lieutenant. Mark said, "Yeah, come on, I was 7. Did you at least get a cool car? Or was it all just spreadsheets?" Their jokes were a constant low-grade acid drip, slowly eroding my sense of self. At family barbecues, Gary would hold court. Gary said, "My boy Mark here, he's a foreman. You can see what he builds. It's right there, but Alex, well, he's in logistics. Very mysterious." He'd always make air quotes, and his friends would chuckle. The worst was the pity in my mother's eyes. She wanted to believe me, but the constant skepticism from her husband wore her down. My mother said, "Alex, honey, just one little thing. Did you travel? Were you safe?" It would put my mind at ease. I said, "I was safe, Mom. I served my country. That's all I can say." But my silence fed their narrative. I was a failure who had invented a glamorous past to cover up a mundane one. The breaking point came 3 days before my 29th birthday. I was staying at my mom's house, grabbing a late-night glass of water. As I passed the closed door of Gary's study, I heard his voice, along with Mark's. They thought I was asleep. I paused, my instincts from years of surveillance kicking in, telling me to listen. Gary said, "The birthday party is the perfect setting. Everyone will be there. Your aunts, uncles, my buddies from the lodge. We'll do the toasts. I'll start mine off nice, talk about how we're all family, how we value honesty." Mark said, "And then?" Gary said, "And then I'll look him right in the eye. I'll say we're all tired of the charade. That we know he's been lying about his service to make himself feel important. That it's time to stop disrespecting real soldiers and apologize to everyone for his little fantasy, publicly. The pressure will crack him. He'll have to admit the truth." I felt a cold fury, so pure and sharp it was like a blade in my gut. This wasn't just casual ridicule. It was a premeditated psychological operation designed to break me in front of my entire support system. The man who had spent years protecting state secrets was about to be branded a liar by his own family. The injustice was a physical pain. I drove back to my sparse apartment, the city lights blurring through a film of angry tears. I felt more alone than I ever had in a foreign country. Then I remembered a number. It wasn't for emergencies. It was for extreme emergencies. Colonel Jameson, my former CO, had given it to me the day I was discharged. "If you ever need the unit, Reynolds, and I mean really need us, you call this. We take care of our own, this qualified." With a trembling hand, I dialed the secure line. It rang twice. Colonel Jameson said, "Jameson." The familiar, gravelly voice was an anchor in my storm. I said, "Sir, it's Captain Alex Reynolds. I have a critical personal situation." I laid it all out. The 8 years of silence, the constant mockery, the planned public humiliation. I told him about Gary, about Mark, about the pity in my mother's eyes. I spoke for 10 minutes straight, the words tumbling out in a torrent of pent-up frustration and hurt. There was a long silence on the other end. I thought the line had gone dead. Colonel Jameson said, Reynolds, you listened to the whispers of our enemies for 8 years to keep this country safe. It is an absolute disgrace that you now have to endure this from your own family. Your service was classified. Your honor is not. Stand by, Captain. We'll handle this. And happy birthday. I didn't know what handling it meant. A letter? A phone call? I clung to a fragile hope. The night of my birthday party arrived. My family had rented a banquet room at a nice steakhouse. The room was filled with the chaotic, warm noise of family, my aunts, uncles, cousins, and Gary's loud friends from the VFW who, ironically, treated me with more respect than my own family. I put on a smile, but inside, I was a coiled spring, waiting for the ambush. Dinner was served. Laughter echoed. Then, as dessert was being cleared, Gary stood up, tapping his knife against his champagne flute. The room quieted. This was it. He smiled, a wide, predatory grin. Gary said, "Everyone, if I could have your attention." "We're here to celebrate my son, Alex, 29 years old today." He paused for effect. Alex is a man of mystery. He's always been a little different, a little quiet. And for years, he's told us stories about his top-secret job in the military. Very hush-hush. A few of his friends chuckled nervously. My mother looked down at her plate. Gary said, "Well, I think it's time we brought some honesty into this family. Alex, we all love you, but this fiction has gone on long enough. It's time to stop pretending. It's time to apologize for lying to your family all these years." And the door to the banquet room opened, cutting him off mid-sentence. 3 people walked in. 2 men and a woman. They weren't in uniform, but they might as well have been. They wore dark, impeccably tailored suits, and they moved with a unified, purposeful grace that silenced the room more effectively than Gary's knife on glass. It was Colonel Jameson, accompanied by Sergeant Miller and Chief Warrant Officer Davis from my old unit. Every eye was on them. Gary, flustered at his moment being stolen, blustered, "This is a private event! Who are you?" Colonel Jameson ignored him completely. His eyes scanned the room and locked onto mine. He walked straight toward me, the crowd parting before him like the Red Sea. When he was 3 feet away, he stopped, straightened his spine, and snapped a perfect, razor-sharp salute, his hand poised rigidly beside his brow. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the water pitchers. My years of training took over. I stood, my chair scraping back, and returned the salute with equal precision. Colonel Jameson said, "Captain Reynolds. Apologies for the interruption, sir. We had to come and pay our respects." The word captain hung in the air. My brother Mark's jaw was on the floor. I said, "No apologies necessary, Colonel. Thank you for coming." Colonel Jameson then turned to face my family. His presence was commanding, sucking all the air out of Gary's bluster. Colonel Jameson said, "My name is Colonel David Jameson. This is Sergeant Miller and Chief Warrant Officer Davis. We served with Captain Reynolds in the 306th Military Intelligence Battalion." He let that unit designation sink in. Military Intelligence. Colonel Jameson said, "We understand there have been persistent questions regarding the captain's service. We are not at liberty to discuss operational details. The work Captain Reynolds did remains classified at the highest levels. What I can tell you is this. His analytical work directly prevented multiple acts of terror on Allied soil. He was personally responsible for identifying and helping to neutralize 3 separate." Gary turned a sickly shade of gray. He looked like a man who had been physically struck. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as she stared at the man she'd married, his entire respectable facade obliterated in seconds. Colonel Jameson's voice was cold steel. "You plan to demand an apology from a decorated officer for false claims? The only dishonor in this room is yours. You sought to humiliate a man of integrity to cover for your own lack of it. Captain Reynolds earned the Legion of Merit for his service, an award for exceptional conduct. The only thing you've earned is our contempt." With that, Colonel Jameson turned back to me. The sternness left his eyes, replaced by a deep respect. Colonel Jameson said, "The unit is proud of you, Captain. Always will be. Happy birthday!" The 3 of them saluted me once more, turned in perfect unison, and walked out, leaving behind a silence that was both terrifying and utterly liberating. The party was over. There were no more toasts. Gary fled the room, unable to face anyone. Mark was pale and shrunken, the reality of his hero's corruption crashing down around him. My relatives looked at me with a new, awestruck respect, mixed with profound shame for their own complicity. the man who had wanted a public apology had been publicly dismantled. The liar was revealed as a hero, and the pillar of the community was exposed as a convicted felon. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The truth, delivered with the unwavering authority of the United States Army, had spoken for me. I finally had my validation, and it was more powerful and satisfying than I had ever dared to dream. If you were captivated by this story of ultimate vindication, of a quiet hero finally getting the recognition he deserved from the most powerful sources imaginable, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more epic tales of justice and secrets revealed. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a story about standing up for your honor and the truth winning in the end.